I'll say it once and I'll say it again, I really like Arcane. I mean, that's why I'm doing a video on it. I know this is like absolutely nothing else we've had on this channel, but I love the show and I'm going to make it everyone else's problem. It also is like really popular right now and I want views, so anyways, I'm going to split this video into two parts. The first part is spoiler free and me just strongly encouraging you to go watch this masterpiece, and the second will be more in-depth analysis of my thoughts on the show. To skip to the second bit, just go to this timestamp. Okay, so why should you watch this Netflix original animated TV show based off of one of the world's most globally disliked game franchises? Well, first off, even though many of the characters are based off of League of Legends characters, you don't need to know anything about the game to like this show. I've never played it, and when I considered trying it after finishing Arcane, I remembered the gameplay looks like this, and I reconsidered. So, yeah, you don't need to know anything about the game, and I wouldn't watch the show if you did. So basically, the premise is there's these two sisters who are orphaned at a young age and taken in by this guy Vandered. I know, orphaned. Sounds like a Disney show, right? It's not. Okay, so they live in the Undercity of Piltover, a big city of progress they call it, where there's a very clear class divide. The slums of the Undercity are filled with crime, but they all seemingly stick together to face the trouble the cops of Piltover, or the enforcers, calls them. Basically, these two girls, Powder and Vi, along with two others adopted by Vander, scamper around as kids, robbing a bunch of people blind and selling it for monetary compensation. You know, kids do. Things do go south, though, when the kids nearly get caught in a heist due to Powder inadvertently blowing the place up. And the enforcers go on a wild manhunt all over the city for them, and a whole bunch of stuff happens, bringing their adopted father Vander to eventually be captured by this other bad guy, Silco. Yeah, you know he's bad because he has this spooky eye thing, and you know you have to be a bad guy if you have that. The oldest three go off to try to save him, and when the world's favorite kid tech genius shows up to try to help too, she blows everything up. Again. Well, then there's this time skip and a whole bunch of mental instability, drug addictions, whatever this is, and I don't want to go on anymore into the plot because just watch it, dude. I would say one of the strongest points of the show is the characters, and by the end of the measly 9 episodes that the first season contains, you get an attachment to each of these characters and become genuinely concerned about their well-being. Also, the art is fantastic, and you can pause the video anywhere, and it's an instant screensaver, like I'm not even joking. Well, I mean, maybe not everything, but like, my point still stands. It's beautiful. Also, there's a confirmed season 2, so it's not just the 9 episodes. I mean, it might not be out until like at least 2023, but like, hey, it's on its way. I guess there's also this scientist dude who likes magic, and then this other scientist dude who doesn't like magic, and this other scientist dude who everyone simps over. In essence, there are 2 subplots, and they brush by each other a couple times and eventually violently smash into each other, but in like a graceful way. The character designs are also epic too. My favorite character design is this one guy, Echo, and he's not even like a main character. I just think he looks neat. But also, another big aspect is how full the world seems. Like, it doesn't seem like it's just there as the setting, but it feels like an actual living, breathing place. It has a more serious tone, but at times it can be really funny, and it's super enjoyable and engaging to watch. I mean, I binged it in a day, 100% would recommend. Sleep is for losers. I would strongly encourage you to watch this if you enjoyed Avatar: The Last Airbender, Bad Batch has a similar art style to Bad Batch, Infinity Train, The Owl House, Dragon Prince, or even the new She-Ra. It is mostly an action show, but it also seems so real, like you get so invested in the world and the people, it's physically painful when the credits roll on episode 9. Also, there's a massive cliffhanger. This is basically a quick synopsis, so obviously not too much, but I hope you check it out anyway. Okay, now I'm going into the spoilery section, my analysis. So if you haven't seen it yet, I urge you to click off the sub and come back when you're done. It's definitely worth it, and I 100%, as I said before, recommend the show. I've got a whole lot to say and very little patience, So this is all going to kind of mush together, but that doesn't really matter because this is basically entirely opinion-based, or, like I said, just kind of my review. So first off, I'm going to say how I found the show. It was actually TikTok, and probably because of the violent shipping wars. Also, how this show has risen through the ranks and is currently one of the highest rated Netflix originals, even though it's only been out for a few months. I've heard people say this before, but when I started the show, I legitimately thought there was going to be something between Victor and Jace, and I hadn't even seen fan art yet for that, so I don't think the crazy shippers are that far off. Even though I did find it through unsteady means, it was entirely worth it, and I think that if you're watching this video, you would probably agree. And if you don't, you're probably going to be thoroughly disappointed by my review, because it's very much biased, and I'm very much willing to admit that too. Starting off, I just want to say how much I like the flow of the story. Most of the time when you get an action-adventure series similar to this one, the pacing can be a little bit strange, with filler episodes and pauses for gimmicks and other things along that line. I know these two are entirely different genres, but I do like to compare this show to Avatar. The main thing I'm going for here is their use of time skips. Their use of time skips clearly differ in one particular aspect, as Arcane time skip is roughly 6 years and the Avatar is only a couple of months. But the use of similar time skips is how well they interact with the storyline. Most of the time I view time skips as a cheap way for shows to give characters rad design updates, but story-wise, both of these shows, it really works. And let's be honest, it does give the characters rad design updates too, so I'm not complaining. The pacing of the story, despite the fact that it has a time skip, is always consistent the entire time, and there's no point in watching the show where I was bored. I was constantly paying attention to something, and at no point did I want to click off. I did binge it in a day though, so that's kind of a testament to my adoration of this show. Another thing I wanted to address is the characters. The characters are what drew me to the show at first. Not only their designs, but their interactions and the little clips I would see. What I would see that really intrigued me was the dynamic between characters, especially how the dynamic between Powder and Vi, which I guess is the baseline of the show. Because the plot really only happens because of this dynamic. In the beginning, Jinx, or Powder, always wants to be like her sister. She would always want to be helpful and strong, and which is what drives her to constantly try to prove herself and eventually becoming her downfall. But she still does this post-time skip rather than trying to impress her sister, Silco. Speaking of the devil himself, I know people are always like, sure, he's a bad person, but he's a great dad, and I'm going to very harshly disagree with that. I'm pretty sure a good father doesn't raise a 9-year-old with trauma to become a homicidal, machine gun-wielding maniac, and if your father is like this, yes, that was a personal attack. Get better. Another fun fact that you can learn from being involved in the fandom of Arcane is definitely not the perfect father-daughter relationship, or in my opinion, a good one at all. Silco is a good villain though, because like most characters in the show, he's three-dimensional. He does really care for Jinx, and chose to stop everything to save her life, and as he says in the finale, he never really seems like he's going to turn her over to the Enforcers. So, good for him to not turning in a psychopath adopted daughter into the cops. I mean, like father like daughter, right? Speaking of fathers, Stan Vander, we love him. I've heard quite a bit about him possibly coming back as a League of Legends character. Something to do with him being nicknamed the Hound of the Underground. Like I said, I'm not super invested in League, so I wouldn't know. I'd know nothing about it. It seems pretty likely, but I hope that this isn't once again just a cheap way to bring back a character so it can fit into League of Legends canon. Also, can we talk about how much better the characters look in Arcane than they do in League? I mean, I haven't even ever played it, but come on, just seeing it, like, it looks so much better. I mean, Jinx, come on. Okay, but did anyone else find the whole thing with Jace and Mel a little bit jarring? Was that necessary? I love Mel, though. Jace is pretty cool, too. I really do like that fight scene when him and Vi are in the Shimmer Factory. You know that one where he accidentally kills a child? Yay, character development. My favorite fight scene out of the entire season, without a doubt, is the Echo versus Jinx. The soundtrack, the way it keeps flipping back between past and present. Actually, that leads into another thing. A lot of people think that this implies that Echo is going to have some sort of time travel abilities in the future. I think that's something pretty interesting, especially the fact that he's like named Echo, like, you know, makes sense. You know, Echo, okay. Well, anyway, he's definitely one of my favorite characters, and even though he's not been there for super long, I really like the whole Firelight thing. I think it's really cool, and I hope they bring him back for a bigger part in Season 2. Okay, now we're going to talk about Caitlyn, another one of my favorite characters. I mean, I should probably stop saying that because they're, like, all my favorite characters. There are very few of them that I just don't like. Well, for, like, character reasons. They're all very good characters. Nonetheless, I think she served her purpose really well. I did kind of find her the tiniest bit annoying when you first meet her, but I think that's the intention. It's probably because I was so solidly on the side of the poor people that my first thought was, ew, a rich person. Disgusting. But for real, I really liked her character design and how she incorporated into the storyline, especially after seeming like a very minor character at first, and comes out to be the way that they do this really shows how much they thought about the show and how real it feels, because in real life there isn't main characters, like anyone can be involved in anything. It's not even clear in the show who is a character from League and who's just a character that comes out of thin air. Then there's also the whole thing with Cait and Vi. As Counselor Kierman would say, they seem like very good friends. I like Vi a lot, and I like how her getting the gauntlets is an homage to Vander. I just thought that was kind of cool. It sucks that the cops abducted her. I mean, I guess who wouldn't storm off into a dark alleyway after their 9-year-old sister killed the rest of their adopted family? I don't really blame her. I know a lot of people blame her, but really it's not her fault that her sister got abducted by a psychopath. But anyway, I also liked Victor. He's pretty cool. I like his design and his backstory, and his motivations are really cohesive. Like, everything he does makes sense. Nothing really seems out of the blue. When I first started the show, I thought he was going to turn out to be some sort of villain, because he's like the spooky Russian guy with a cane. You get what I mean. Of course his name's Victor with a Russian accent, but instead Jace turned out to be that way. I mean, Jace is a jerk. I mean, that's really all I have to say about him. But I do think it's cool that they both have absolutely incredible timing when it comes to strolling into an area that contains a cliff and saying the phrase, "Am I interrupting?" Honestly, if it weren't for the cinematography, it could have ended very poorly. But then again, half of the problems in the show wouldn't happen, so maybe it would have been a good thing if Victor had just been a little bit later. I know some people don't like it when it randomly turns into like the music video type thing, but I really have to disagree with them. I quite like the music. It fits into every aspect of the show. Also, it's Imagine Dragons, and you can't really hate them. It's pretty neat. I also think it's kind of neat that they canonically exist in the universe, which is kind of funny. The soundtrack is dope. The art is exquisite, and the plot is cohesive and engaging. I know more about the characters than I do my friends, but hey, that is the life of a socially inept, animation-obsessed nerd on the internet. That's my opinion, take it or leave it. Leave comments. All it will do is boost the video in the algorithm. I'm really excited for Season 2, and surprised the Dweeb video game spin-off was this good. Thank you for watching, and good luck finding something else to watch, because I can't help you with that.